I'd just like to say there's a really great buzz about being in a room like this with a lot of inspiring and motivated people all looking to do better. So thank you so much for letting me share in that today. Okay, let's just get started. Let's go on one slide, 2, 4. There we go. So firstly, I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional landowners of this amazing continent. I'd like to extend my respects today to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the custodians of this land that we're now on right now. I'd also like to extend that respect to elders past and present. And to add something else, that the Indigenous people of this country have cared for it and lived in harmony with it for tens of thousands of years. And as such, they have a unique understanding of its importance that others just can't. So I'd love to pay homage to this ancient wisdom and to say that I really do hope that we as a society can get closer to it, not further away from it. So I'll start here with a little story. 7 years ago today, I was on a property similar to this one, about 2 hours south of Sydney, with my twin brother and co-founder Cam. This was where we'd recently set up our first cabin. It was named Miguel. I'd just flown in from Singapore recently at that point. I was still working a full-time role over there as a manager at a fast-growth tech startup. I remember feeling overworked. I was working weekends, nighttime, lunchtime. I had responsibilities weighing on me. Some things were going right, some things were going wrong. And I know my brother was the same at that point. I actually remember us bickering on the drive down because we'd been called out there. It hadn't been a part of our plan, but as the only 2 employees at the company at the time, and there was a malfunctioning composting toilet, it was up to us to fix it. So I then vividly remember, though, later that afternoon, we'd been working around the cabin the whole day. We were sweaty, we were covered in who knows what. And we looked at each other and we smiled and we were relaxed and we said, how good is this? And so what changed our outlook? Shouldn't we have been feeling worse after all this? Maybe we were just chuffed that we'd solved a shitty situation. A little bit, yes. But there's some fascinating science that says there was more at play here. Our heart rates had dropped. Our stress markers and our inflammation markers in our body had begun to lower. Things like our mood, our concentration, our creativity, even our hearing and our eyesight had been given a boost, and we felt more connected with each other than we had earlier that day. So this may sound like some sort of limitless pill, but actually, it's something much simpler. It's the undeniable, proven fact that our bodies undergo a host of positive changes when we're exposed to nature. And I'm here after close to a decade of building a business and working around this area and helping tens of thousands of people spend over 1 million hours immersed in nature, that it's something more than that. That human nature needs nature, and that it should be thought of as vital as good sleep or regular exercise. But firstly, what does this really mean? Has anyone here heard this term? Yeah, we've got a few hands there. So you may know that it's derived from the Greek word philia, which means love of. And today it's most often used to describe a deeply ingrained love that we as humans have for nature. That it's also genetically predisposed in us to be attracted to the natural world. So we might feel it when we're walking past a flowering plant, we take a deep breath through our nose, or when we hear the birds chirping in the morning and we get a smile on our face, or when we feel more grounded when we wiggle our toes barefoot in the grass. But I don't think attraction really helps us illustrate how deep an impact that's happening here is. We're attracted to nature the same way that we're attracted to taking a breath. It's an innate part of our makeup, and it's been designed to help us survive. Here's another one for you. There's a concept in evolutionary science called the environment of evolutionary adaptedness. Has anyone heard of this one? No, it's a bit of a mouthful, right? So this refers to the ancestral environment to which a species has adapted and the selection pressures in that environment that have caused it to evolve and continue to survive. So what do you think our ancestral environment that we've evolved in over hundreds of thousands, even millions of years looks like? That? No, didn't think so, right? Something more akin to that. So it doesn't take a big leap to think that our biological makeup has adapted to an environment like this, and that it still continues to react to an environment like this today. It's how we survive so long as a species. It's how we were able to find fertile land, to be able to cultivate food, and to be able to nurture new life. And today, there's over 1,000 published studies that present information on the associations between nature exposure and the healthy functioning of our systems, like our cognitive abilities, our mental health, even down to one 2015 study in the UK that showed that crime rates significantly dropped with nature exposure. But before I jump into that a little further, I'd like to tell you a little story about a buddy of mine named Holly. So Holly and I were chatting a little while back, and she was telling me that she was worn out, she was anxious, she was feeling much worse than she used to. And I said, hey, Hol, tell me about your day-to-day. Tell me about how you spend your time. And so she works in the creative industries, and she was telling me, well, she's taken on some big new projects. It's bleeding into her personal time. She's frustrated with herself because she's scrolling through rubbish on her phone too often. She lives in the inner west, and she's really only traveling from her bed to her desk to her couch and then into the office a couple of times a week. And this predicament that Holly's in, it's not uncommon right now. Could I just ask something of you guys in the audience quickly? Could you raise your hand if you've felt burnt out at all in the last 12 months? Yeah, and in that same period, who thinks that they haven't been out to nature enough? Yeah, a lot of hands, right? So that actually aligns with a 15,000 person consumer research survey that we commissioned. And we asked working age population Australians in urban areas those questions, and the results were staggering. 92% of respondents said they'd felt burnt out in the last 12 months. And 80% of them, that's 4 out of 5, said that they hadn't been out to nature enough. That's pretty alarming, right? Something is up. Let's dig into that a little bit. What could be causing this communal burnout? Could it be the modern lifestyles that we're living? So, did you guys know that studies have shown that an average Australian checks their phone 7.8 times every hour? That's once every 8 minutes of your waking day. So that same average Australian will clock up about 6 hours of screen time in a day. And if you pull that out to the macro, over a lifetime, that's 17 years. It's alarming, right? And how about the fact that 86% of Australians live in urban areas? And on average, we spend 90% of our time indoors. If I asked you, maybe not the lucky few of you, but if I asked you if you heard more birds or more cars in a day, or if you saw more trees or more concrete in a day, what do you think your answer would be? So it's clear that we're not living in an environment anywhere near that which we've adapted for. And unfortunately, these elements are contributing to some drastic health difficulties. In the last 10 years, we've seen sharp rises in mental health issues like anxiety and depression, in fatigue and exhaustion, and in social isolation and loneliness. But we think that there's a way that we can help change that. Can I just get everyone to just close your eyes, take a couple of deep breaths if you like, and just focus on the birds for a second? Okay, now open your eyes slowly and just have a look at the picture on the screen here and just imagine yourself in that environment as well for a moment if you could. So if you're interested, that soundtrack is from sunrise at one of our cabins, and this is just down through the bush at that same cabin. But do you all feel calmer already? I hope so. One study shows that just looking at a picture of green trees can lower cortisol levels, and only for 20 seconds. Another study shows that listening to bird sounds for 6 minutes can lower levels of anxiety, depression, and paranoia. Pretty cool, right? So, you've heard the problem that the environment we're living in is at odds with the healthy functioning of our bodies, and you understand a simple solution: get out to nature more often and let it work its magic. So why did my brother and I decide to get more involved in this? Well, if your bodies can react to something so simple, like a recording of bird sounds and a picture of a forest, then how do you think the impact would be if you amplify it by immersive nature, solitude, and awe-inspiring landscapes? But can't everyone just go camping, do you ask? Yes, and you should. But the matter of fact is that too many people living in urban areas these days have forgotten how to do it. They don't have the knowledge, they don't have the skills, they don't have the time or the access to be able to do it. And there aren't many options that are readily available and safe to be able to immerse yourself in nature. So we created Unyoked for this simple purpose: to get more people out to nature more often, and to help educate people around the benefits of nature so that they can understand that it's vital for our functioning and that it should be thought of more like healthy eating, regular exercise, and good sleep. Really, our goal at Unyoked has been to championing a change of thinking away from something like this, which is just a broad, simplified version of today's thinking around vital components of a healthy lifestyle, and throw nature time in there and make people understand that it needs to be a core part of your routine. So, how did a couple of guys like my brother and I set about achieving this? Well, you've heard that we placed a cabin a couple of hours outside Sydney. Is that what Unyoked's about? Simply put, it is, yeah. Would you like to take a look at it? So, we set out to make the wilderness more accessible through creating a network of off-grid cabins that could get into hard-to-reach places, that could survive in tough terrain, and that could unlock wilderness locations within reach of major urban centres that hadn't been accessible to the public. Let's keep looking. So, we opened up complete immersion in amazing natural settings with the amenities that you'd normally only be able to get at your home or in a hotel. And we did it without having to put down concrete foundations, mains water, mains power, or mains electricity, so that we could run a sustainable operation and that we could leave the environment as we found it. What else did we do? Well, next, we combed through all of the available research and we honed in on 3 core benefits of nature that we believe are vital to our functioning, and they're easy to digest, and we built a brand and experience around that. Let's take a closer look at this. So this is our core benefit number 1, and it's a big one: stress reduction. Is there anyone here who could use a bit of this right now? Yep. So one study by Nippon Medical School in Japan proved that by sending their students out to nature for 2 days, they significantly lowered their cortisol rates, which is, as you guys would know, one of the main stress markers. Another study supported this and found that by spending a couple of days out in nature, cortisol levels and heart rates were dropped compared to participants who stayed in the city. So we've structured an experience around this with elements like the fact that you have to hike into our cabins from your car and you have to grind your own coffee beans in the morning. And we do this because we want to turn routine into ritual. We want you to slow down, take a breath, and take in your surroundings while you're doing it. So we're also working with corporations to help their employees understand the concept of periodization. So that's something that's popular with elite sportsmen. Essentially, it's the fact that you can't always be performing at 100% and that you should tap off to tap back on again. And so we give employees and teams access to quarterly nights in the forest where they can do this and they can amplify their results by the immersive nature. We've also conducted our own research. We work with global agency Interbrand and have sent their creative strategists out across the world to measure things like their mood, productivity, and stress levels before and after their stays. We've also even worked with people like Matthew McConaughey, the Hollywood movie star, who we built a cabin with, and we ran an awareness campaign around a benefit like this to help more people be aware of it and to get out to nature more often. So that's number one. Number two of the big three, increased connection. So studies have shown that the feeling of awe, that's this sense of wonder that you're dwarfed by something. If you're standing in the foot of a large tree or at the base of a mountain and you get that little tingle on the back of your neck, you guys know the one? Well, that feeling actually leads to more feelings for people of community and belongingness. One author of a Stanford University-led study concluded that awe enhances well-being and causes people to behave more altruistically and less materialistically. I'm sure you'd agree that's something that we need more of in the world today. So our field guides have actions and thought starters designed to help you get the most out of this benefit. We've even partnered with sex education and pleasure powerhouse Normal to run a series of courses where you and your partner can get more intimate and connect all by yourself out at our cabins using nature. You know, whatever you like. And the third of the big three is a fun one, using nature to boost creativity. So imagine a therapy that had no known side effects, that was readily available, and that could improve cognitive functioning at zero cost. That's the rather dramatic opening to a 2008 paper on the benefits of nature therapy. Another study out of the University of Kansas sent participants out to the bush for 4 days and measured their results on a creative problem-solving task, and they saw an improvement of 50% on the people who went outdoors versus didn't. So imagine if you yourself or your team, if you sent out high performers and you could get a 50% boost in their performance just by changing the environment. It's quite drastic. I myself went out earlier this year. We've designed a product called a Think Week, which is based on helping people harness these benefits and loosely on Bill Gates' practice of heading out to a cabin once a year. We've got a guide and a template on how you should do it. I went out at the start of the year and set my goals out there. I even wrote this presentation out at a cabin, actually. So great thinkers and Indigenous cultures have known these things for a long time, but they're not mainstream yet. And so we see our role at Unyoked as a facilitator, as a voice of this movement, and we work with large initiatives like our partnership and collaboration with Apple Music last year, where we sent a host of amazing award-winning artists out to our cabins, where they wrote original tracks going through their creative process while they were at the cabin. We then sent Apple's sound engineers down to record new spatial audio of the locations of the cabins, of which you guys heard some earlier. And we actually have some playing around other areas of the conference today too, so go check them out. The artists then took that spatial audio and the songs they'd written at the cabin, and they produced original content. And then we launched an album on the front page of Apple Music to 80 million people. And we also followed it with content to help the everyday person be able to copy this process and get in their own flow. So that's a good example of our strategy, really, to help raise the benefits, the awareness of the benefits of nature, and then facilitate an experience that helps people understand the where, when, what, and why behind it. So I'll start to wrap up here. I hope we can all see that time in nature is vital for us. It's something that should be incorporated into our routines, and it should be on par with sleeping well and eating well and exercising well. We've all got our own shitty situations going on, so just know that those three benefits, stress reduction, increased connection, and boosting creativity, are available to anybody at any time. It doesn't need to be unyoked. Just start small, just get outside more, and then build up to a quarterly nature habit where you're getting fully immersed in the outdoors in a beautiful natural setting. And I urge you to turn the dial up on your nature time. It'll not only benefit yourself, it'll benefit other people around you, and it'll also mean that we're much more likely to protect the environment for future generations so they have the same opportunity to do so. Thank you.